Good evening, everyone. Thank you so very much for joining us today. Here's the run of tonight's show. We're going to do an introduction and overview of the Charter Review Commission, give you all a summary of issues that we've considered and revisions that we're thinking of developed to date, provide an opportunity for public comment, and then use closing comments from each of the commissioners. But before we get started, what I'd like to do is take a moment to allow the commissioners to introduce themselves. We'll start on this end of the table and go down.
Eric Rose, 1st District.
Michael McGee, 6th District.
Jack Stedman, at-large co-chair.
Karen Slaughter, 3rd District, co-chair.
Wilson Vance, 4th District.
Margaret Jones, at large.
Adam Miller, at-large.
Jenny Johnson, 2nd District.
Linda Brown, 5th District.
Thank you. So a couple of things I'd like to call your attention to. The red line notes of the topics that we will be discussing today are in the hallway. There are also comment cards, so in the event that you're interested in speaking, the public comment cards are in the hallway. And if you complete those and share them with us, we'll make sure that you have an opportunity to speak. At last week's meeting, we talked about tonight's meeting, which is being live streamed on YouTube and on Facebook, and it'll be recorded by the city communications staff. The explanation of the charter is the city's charter is the city's constitution, and it was first ratified in 1853. Section 1212 of the city charter states that the mayor shall appoint a commission no less than once every 10 years for the purposes of reviewing the terms and operation of the city charter. The commission may make recommendations to the mayor and city council for amendments to the charter or may recommend no changes. If the mayor and city council approve recommended amendments to the charter, a vote of the public will be held to ratify or reject proposed amendments. No change recommended by this commission can be ratified without ultimately being approved by public vote. The charter sets forth rules related to nominations and elections of the mayor, city council, initiative, recall, and referendum petitions, appointment and removal of officers by the council, establishment of departments, offices, boards, and commissions, and introduction and ratification of ordinances and resolutions. The 2023 commission is comprised of 9 commissioners, 1 representing each district, and 3 at-large commissioners. As a North Star for the work of this commission, we strive toward the goal of municipal government that works for all Kansas Cityans. To that end, we have adopted the following guiding principles for our work: strengthening and safeguarding democratic processes, increasing government accountability, and reducing unnecessary bureaucracy. This commission is devoted to reviewing the city charter in its entirety. This commission is also committed to resisting the urge to make the charter overly specific or narrow in scope, or to make proposals related to policy. As an independent commission, we have been charged to do no harm in our review and recommendations and to protect this foundational document in a way that promotes greatest flourishing for Kansas Cityans in the decades to come. The overview of our commission work to date can be found on the kansascitymissouri.gov/charter website, and it's been updated by the city communications staff. The website provides information on our work and contains a link to the city's charter. Additionally, the website contains meeting agendas and briefing primers provided to the commission on revisions recommended by the mayor's office. As a brief synopsis of the work conducted to date, the commission began its meeting process on April 11, 2023. The commission has met weekly for approximately 3.5 hours during each regular meeting and has accepted public testimony at each of these regular meetings. Additionally, the commission has held 3 public listening sessions at the following locations: the Northland Neighborhood, Inc., Southeast Community Center, and tonight at the Gregg Klice Community Center. We're going to talk about the summary of the issues considered and just give you a few key points of the proposed revisions. And we're going to start with the centralized filing system in random ballot order. And we're going to let Margaret speak to that.
Thank you very much. Thanks also for coming. The first proposal that we've made is to create a centralized filing system and random ballot order process. Currently, candidates for council and mayor can file a nominating petition with the Kansas City clerk or the election authorities in Cass, Clay, and Platte counties. Candidates are also ordered or listed on the ballot based on the time of their nominating petition was received or time-stamped. This has resulted in candidates camping outside of the election board city clerk's offices the night before petitions can be received and has created an unnecessary administrative burden to the election authorities as they try to remain consistent in how they receive and process nominating petitions. The current status of this proposal, on May 9th, the Commission unanimously voted to include it in its report, a proposal to amend Section 602 of the Charter to specify a single filing location for candidates and to establish a randomized ballot order. The pros to having a centralized filing system are it will reduce administrative burden to the election authorities and will promote fairness and equality to candidates in how their nominating petitions are processed and how candidates are ordered on the ballot. Does anybody have any public questions about that? No? Okay.
So for those of you who were with us last week, what we'll be doing in terms of structure for public comment is we will have a general time of public comment at the end, but we also would like to invite anyone who has specific comments about the topics addressed to come up once we finalize our conversation about that topic. So we'll give a pause here in just a moment for anyone that would like to come and speak to us about the centralized filing system and random ballot order. But we'll also be talking about the election calendar, the way or the method in which we vote, and then finally we'll talk about initiative, referendum, and recall petitions. So if your public comment slates into one of those topics, we ask that you would come and share that immediately following our conversation about that. Otherwise, we'll call you at the end.
All right, anybody got something to say about central filing location? Going once? Okay, all right. Hey y'all, my name is Wilson Vance. I am the 4th District Rep, and I'm going to talk to you all about the changes in the election calendar that the Commission is currently considering. So kind of why we started looking at this issue is that in Kansas City, as well as across the country, there is pretty low turnout in local elections. So since the last charter review in 2013, when we changed our election dates, no municipal election has had more than 23% voter turnout, and only 14% of those registered voted in the most recent primary, which was in April. So in our city elections, our primary is held in April, and our general election is held in June. What we are considering as the Commission is changing those to have our primary election in August and our general election in November in odd years, which means that the next election following this coming one would be August, November in 2027. So we have not actually, as a commission, reached consensus regarding this proposal. The two prevailing options that we are considering right now are changing it to the odd year August and November cycle or recommending no change at all. Some pros associated with changing the calendar to August, November in odd years is that August and November cycle is fairly familiar to voters compared to the current April and June timeline, and because of this, it might promote greater awareness of municipal elections. August and November are also already required to be held by the election authorities as a date on the state election calendar, so implementation would be fairly simple. As well as the revised calendar provides a longer timeline for election authorities to certify results of the primary election to comply with statutory timelines of Missouri. Some potential cons are that there could be an increase in cost to the city for elections, as costs would be spread across fewer municipalities. These increase in costs are estimated to be at about 15% or $150,000. There could also be complexity that would arise from the extension of terms for city council, mayor, and municipal judges of 5 months. So this is important to note. If we were to change these dates, then the next city council and mayor's terms would be extended by 5 months. There's also the question of our city budget cycle. So right now, if we were to change these dates, then the new city council would be sworn in on January 1st, which could cause difficulty as the proposed budget becomes public in early February. Then we have a series of public hearings, and then the city council must finalize the budget by March 23rd of each year. So we would be looking at a new incoming council every 4 years, kind of jumping into a fairly complex process right there. Some alternatives that we have considered are an even year August and November cycles. So that would be that the next election would be August and November in 2028, which would extend the term by a year and 5 months instead. We as a commission have chosen not to move forward with this approach, as the election authorities cited increased costs with longer ballots, additional polling locations and poll workers, longer voting times, longer wait times, potential for voter fatigue, and the combination of having a nonpartisan municipal election at the same time as a partisan federal and state election. And that's what I've got for election dates. Any comments?
Yeah, let's have that hand first, and then if you want to line up into that. So, and if you'll come and speak, I believe we have a microphone that's right here, just so everyone online can hear. Yeah, that'd be perfect. Thank you.
It's actually more of a question. How come we don't?
Sorry? Oh, okay. I'm being told we need to use this mic instead. Sorry about that.
Right. More of a question. How come we don't make them coincident with the congressional elections if our intent is to save money and build participation?
Yeah, I'll take that back. Sorry.
Phil Bride.
Phil, thank you. Thanks, Phil. We appreciate that. Do you want to speak to that?
So that would be midterms?
Midterms, all the national. So we never
Yeah, so you're saying that even year. Yep.
Basically the congressional.
Right. Yeah. So that was what we mentioned at the very end of that last bullet there, which is when we spoke with election authorities, there were a few things that they cited that were going to make the implementation that difficult. So first of all, we're talking way longer ballots, so multi-page ballots, and they said that would likely result in additional polling locations and poll workers, longer voting and wait times, potential for voter fatigue, so wanting to make sure that we're not having folks show up to the municipal election and not casting their votes for council races or for the mayoral race because they've burned out by the time they've gotten through the big ticket state and federal items. And then also we'd be basically combining nonpartisan municipal elections with the partisan federal and state elections. So those were the concerns stated there. Yeah, thank you for your question. We'll go here next and then, yeah, and then you afterward. If you'll just state your name in the microphone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Reverend Chauncey Black from the 3rd District, and my question has to do with the $150,000 cost that you said would be incurred if the election dates were changed. Could you spell those costs out and be a little more specific?
I personally cannot, but there may be somebody from the city who could speak to that.
I think most of us would like to know what that would entail.
I'll give my best interpretation. So we're sharing this secondhand. That number came directly from the KCMO Director of Finance. So we had her come and speak to us in our most recent Tuesday meeting. And she shared with us that part of the difficulty when you move to an August and November election cycle is actually that you're simply spreading the costs of those elections across fewer different municipalities. So one of the benefits that the city gets currently in the current timeline that we have is we're sharing those election costs with various school boards and several different counties and municipalities that are voting at that same time. Whereas if we move to the new election months, that would basically force Kansas City to receive all of those costs and incur all of those costs.
Yeah, another thing to mention there, in an odd year specifically, because there's not many other things on the ballot in an odd year. In an even year, there are more participants, on that ballot, but the costs go way up because there is higher participation. So that's why the estimated costs are higher.
Well, that, to me, would seem just the opposite. That if you are moving the dates and changing that the cost should not go up, the cost should go down.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. Our understanding is essentially, even though there are more municipalities, more counties that are participating, certainly in an even year where you have congressional races, presidential races, because turnout is higher, you have more polling places, more poll workers, more costs on the whole. So they still are anticipating higher costs, even though it's spread amongst more municipalities, counties, et cetera, the costs are still higher. I'd be interested to ask the question. I think they were certainly speaking to in odd years, there oftentimes is maybe nothing else on the ballot. So it was easier for them to estimate that cost. So maybe we could get some more information on even year versus odd year, where if that 150,000, what exactly that pinpointed difference is, because it may differ odd versus even year. But that's the explanation we were given. Is that fair? First, I think that's a fantastic question. I asked the same one of our finance director at that time, and at that moment, she said if we wanted to get a little bit more granular and tease out and parse out the specific costs that are going to be associated with that, she could probably do that. But at a high level, it really was the stations. It was getting more people educated on how to manage those stations as well, getting volunteers, longer lines, larger turnouts, longer ballots, all those things in aggregate constitute that projection of a $150,000 delta in terms of what it's going to cost. So if it helps in terms of providing context to you, that's something that we can definitely make a request and see if we can find more information for you, just to color in the lines a little bit for that. Absolutely. I'll make a note of that.
I'm John Sharp, former city councilman, and I'd like to speak on this issue because it does have some impact on the main issue I came to speak about, which I haven't seen anything about the commission discussing this, and that is to develop a way for persons who are community activists and really love their community and have shown they love their community through volunteer work would have a realistic chance of getting elected to the city council, which right now I don't think they have that good a chance with the system of at-large council districts, which I have never favored. And because you only have then 6 districts, even the districts are pretty big, where it's tough to run a grassroots campaign. But if you move the elections to elections that have a lot higher turnout, well, that generally is a good thing. That means they're a lot more expensive to run because you're going to have to mail to more people. My biggest thing is that I would like to see us develop a mechanism where people who don't have either immense personal wealth or powerful special interests behind them can have a realistic chance of running for office. Because I think those people can bring a whole lot to our council. And I think most of you know at-large elections generally were the recent rebirth of them, or it's not too recent anymore, was during the Civil Rights era, was in the Old South, when African Americans finally had an opportunity to actually vote, not just on paper, but to actually do it without being killed or risking death or losing their job or being harassed. And at that time, a lot of southern states developed at-large races so the white majority could still dominate those races. And I don't think it's good for the city. So I don't want to see anything done that would make the elections more costly and make it less likely for people that love their city but don't have a lot of wealth to have a realistic chance of winning. Because even in the districts, even if you're running in district, those districts are awfully big. I've done it 4 times. And you can't knock on every door in an in-district race yourself unless you'd start like 2 years before. Now, you can hire people to do it, but it ain't quite the same. But if you had 12 districts, those districts would be districts that are small enough, both geographically and population-wise, that a person could have a realistic chance of winning without great wealth behind them.
Thank you so much.
Sorry, kind of hobbling right on.
Mr. Sharp, can I ask you, if you were to vote on changing the election dates, would you vote yes or no?
I'd keep them the way they are, because I think it makes the cost more attainable for average candidates. Plus, it gives people a chance to really look at the budget in the manner they do now, which is working pretty well. Plus, I don't think it looks too good to put extending the terms of people now in office and put that on the ballot. I think a lot of people think, it's kind of shaky. And then you combine that with some things that might make it more difficult to get initiatives and referendums passed or recalls passed. And I think I can't remember when anybody's been recalled. I remember a lot of tries, but I think those things are kind of a bad look. Thank you.
And you can hand it to this gentleman here as he walks out.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharp.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
My name is Harvey Nash. Guess I live in the 6th district. But anyway, I'm totally against those ballots, running with federal ballots. Totally against that. Don't make sense. What we need to do is be coming up with some type of program that's going to invite more voters into this system. Right now, it's pathetic to see those numbers when we're out there voting. When I'm out here voting, I've been voting since I was 18. I'm 65 now, counting. But anyway, it wouldn't make sense to run that. You're going to increase the turnout, of course, but most people are probably not going to vote all the way through the ballot. Because, see, I'm looking for the quick way in and quick way out, and I've been doing this for a minute. And I've suffered through a whole bunch of these elections that really, to me, when they're talking about real issues, that stuff doesn't get passed. So right now, I'm sick of it. I'm a registered voter for a long time, and then I see people doing stuff like this, the redlining, the gerrymandering. Hey, come up with a way to make this thing simple. I talk to a lot of young folks. They already know how the system is. They're smarter than I was now at their age. Now, they say this don't make sense. So anyway, what I want to get you guys to do, come up with an idea that's going to bring in more voters so we can get people involved into this system that are really being affected. A lot of people get negatively affected by a lot of these policies that's being passed on. And I'm one of those people. And I'm kind of tired of it. And with that, I'm going to pass.
Thank you. My name is Tiffany Moore. I live in the 6th District on 75th Street. I am opposed to changing the dates for the local elections for a couple of reasons, and I have a little experience in this, having just run in the 6th in-district race. If we move these away from the other local races, we're going to orphan those local races. So the school boards and the county will have a smaller turnout as well. I think John makes an excellent point about what it would cost for local election candidates to have to run on a larger ticket in terms of mailings, but also imagine as individual voters what the forum schedule would look like if these were combined with other races, what the candidate info in your mailbox would look like, and how incredibly difficult it would be for the candidates to get focus on local topics that you might end up being just sort of overwhelmed topically and discussion-wise by the larger races. Maybe they don't even bother to vote, or maybe they just vote on those local races in a very uninformed way because they feel like they need to focus on the bigger stuff. So I think that's really important to think about how our elections would actually turn out. I'm curious if we have any data on whether the shift from the April dates to the current ones Did that actually increase voter turnout? Do we know that from the previous change we made? That would be helpful to know. From my perspective, it feels like we're guessing. You think this will work? You think this will work? You think this will work? But maybe we should actually do a survey and ask folks who vote in the city or don't vote in the city why they make those decisions relative to our local races. Maybe it's about other things altogether, and we should focus on those. Maybe folks would like to see combined forums and opportunities to learn about the city council race on their ticket and the school board on their ticket and the county person on their ticket, to kind of think about it holistically. Jeff Jolly also made a really good point, and I don't know if he's here tonight, but at the Southeast Community Center, about the terms and the term length. So we have in the past moved those from 3 terms to 2-term limits. I have heard, not just in my race, but for many years, that as local voters, they barely feel like they know their candidates, and they barely feel like they've had an opportunity to work with the council members, and it's time to vote on them again. And so when we think about wearing the voters out, that might be something to reconsider based on that specific topic. Would we get more interest in the local races if they weren't so close together, not about what time of year they're voting? I think it would be interesting to see if the recent change to the dates we have now did any good before we make another change. And so I would encourage you to make no change at this time on the dates for our local elections.
Phil Bright again. I didn't realize John Sharp was going to bring up the at-large issue. So since he did on this issue, that's why I came down here tonight. Fully supportive of 12 districts. If any of you, I assume you all live in Missouri, if the state of Missouri took their 8 congressional districts and said, we got a plan, we're going to cut them in half, okay, the number, and create 4 large districts. And Emmanuel Cleaver's district is going to be expanded into St. Joe and Belton, Missouri. And guess what? The people in the Boot Hill, Missouri, the at-large, they're going to be helping to choose your 4 at-large districts. So now you're going to have 4 at-large congressional, 4 in districts, or expanded districts. Would any of you be in favor of that? Of course not. So your point is very well taken. There's no way you can run a citywide campaign without access to money and power. And that's what the at-large system does. It finds out who has the money, who has the power, who are we going to back, and we'll support them for the 6 at-large races, plus the mayor. Now you got 7 out of 12 votes. You got the council, right? So open it up, 12 in district is what we need. In districts, you don't even need to win 1 vote in your district if you're running at large. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. It's pathetic. Thank you.
I'll take that microphone. Sorry. No worries. Thanks.
Thanks, Rita.
Yep. Okay. Seeing no other hands on. Oh, perfect. Great. Thanks for keeping us honest. Hello, Ruby. Can you hear us? Hi there, Ruby. We can see you now. Okay. Sorry, give us one moment here, Ruby. Okay, go ahead.
Janelle Shuey. I'm currently in 4th district, but I will be in 6th. I did want to bring up a point that was just brought up and just reiterate it as a single point, that school board elections, if they're the only thing on the ballot in April, are going to draw a lot less people. And I think that makes a difference for school board, for Kansas City School Board. And I would be in favor of the 12 district thing, as I'm getting put in now with 6th District, and we don't face the same issues in 6th District and 4th currently.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that.
Okay, with that, Michael McGee's 6th District, talking about how we vote and a possible change to how we vote here in Kansas City. So as Wilson mentioned, we do have a low voter turnout issue in our municipal elections, and how we vote can have an impact on raising turnout. The process in which we vote can impact that. So in the last three primary election cycles, 100% of candidates, a total of 25, who received a simple majority of votes in the primary, went on to win their general election. Having these candidates who oftentimes win by very large margins, not all the time, but oftentimes, can lead to unnecessary administrative and financial burden in elections for the city, election authorities, and candidates. So where we stand today, the Commission has not yet reached consensus regarding a proposal to modify the voting methods specified in the Charter. There are three options that we're considering at this time. The first is a 50+1 voting method, where any candidate who receives a simple majority of votes in the primary election will automatically be declared the winner of the general election. 50% or more in the primary, you win and you're done. No general election. The next option we're considering is essentially the same thing, but with a higher threshold, 2/3 or 66%. If you get 66% or more in the primary, then you win. And then the final model is what we're calling the Clay County model, recently adopted in the Clay County Charter, which is essentially if there are two candidates for a given race, those candidates go straight through to the general elections. So you don't have a repeat when you have two candidates, a primary and a general, of those same two candidates. And if there are more than two candidates for a race, there will be a primary election, and any candidate that achieves greater than 50% of the vote is declared the winner. So 3 or more candidates, if you get 50% in a race with 3 or more, you're the winner. And also, if there is one candidate, in other words, if they don't have an opponent, they go straight to the general election. Is that right? Straight to the general election. Straight to the general election, and there still is a write-in candidate opportunity, but their name will still be on the ballot in the general. So the pros to these methods, they're kind of all in a similar bucket, I think, is they're relatively simple to understand, and simple for voters to understand when they go to the voting booth. There's no concern with these methods with respect to state statute and compliance with state statute. Reduces unnecessary campaigning for candidates who achieve, a high threshold, 50%, 66% in a primary. Potentially increases voter turnout in primary elections. Obviously, there's going to be more focus, more onus on a primary because you have the chance to win and be done in that primary. Potentially shorter ballots if we don't have as many races going from primary to the general, and thus decreased costs as well. The downside, obviously, is it does not entirely eliminate a primary and general system. You are likely going to have candidates who don't achieve that 50, 66%, or whatever model we end up going with, and there will still be general elections. And there also is a concern that the Commission has about reduced interest or turnout in a general where you have, say, a mayoral race that gets called in a primary, and so there may be less interest in council races or even municipal judge races in the general if those races are called in the primary. We've heard significant testimony, written and at our prior meetings, on a couple of other options, one being approval voting, which has recently been adopted in St. Louis, but more significantly, a similar method called ranked choice voting. We certainly, there are stated benefits of ranked choice voting, less divisive and more collaborative campaigns. I think it's worth noting we obviously don't have partisan elections here in Kansas City, but still collaborative campaigns. Candidates not on the fringe, that's a good thing. Elimination of the need for a primary and a general in a ranked choice voting system. It's one election and you're done. With that comes reduced costs, obviously. Potentially, those campaigns, we've heard some testimony about the fact that ranked choice voting can kind of lead candidates to speak more to the issues that voters care about because of just the way the system works. And then also a greater opportunity for candidates with less funding, as already been mentioned tonight, candidates with less funding to get elected because of the way the system works and the ranking system there. So, at this point, we're leaning away from ranked choice voting. There's concerns the commission has with respect to compliance with state statute. There's concern about public perception of election integrity with respect to ranked choice voting, just in terms of learning the process and understanding how the ranking system works and how that leads to a result. There's probably some education that needs to be done there. And then also some increased software and equipment costs that election authorities have come to us and spoken about as a result of moving to a ranked choice voting system. So with that, that's everything I have. Anyone who wants to speak on this topic, please come forward.
Perfect. We'll start right here. One thing that I do want to mention, too, as we prepare for our first public comment, is we are speaking specifically just about municipal elections, right? So elections for candidates for city council and for the mayor. So hopefully everyone is clear on that, but just wanted to reiterate that.
Ruby is on the line.
Oh, we do have Ruby on the line? Okay, great. Sorry, give me one moment here. Are we doing speakerphone?
Yeah.
Okay.
Technology.
Sorry, thanks for your patience. The digital age, here we are.
Hello?
Hi, Ruby. You are on with the Charter Commission. Feel free to go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, in regards to changing the dates to coincide with the federal election, I think that would be overwhelming to voters. I mean, we have a hard enough time getting them out just for the general, our general election. So I kind of think that needs to stay the same, and we just need to work on voter turnout. And as far as the 12 districts go, I kind of like to leave it at 6, and the reason I say that is because each district, from all of my voting, votes on different issues anyway in accordance to their district. No one is voting on the same thing. And then for the ranked choice voting, I have an issue with that too, because I feel like if we were to do ranked choice voting, okay, this is my first choice, this is my second choice, and whatever, that could actually, in effect, the votes may not actually go to the ones that we really wanted to be our first choice. So I prefer it as it currently is, with just the 2 representatives going against each 3 or whatever, and then going on to the general election with the 2. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We appreciate your comments.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, perfect. All right, with that, here you go. Thanks for your patience. If you'll just share your name at the start, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Jack. I am a resident of the 6th District. I just wanted to comment real quick on the 50% plus 1 proposal. I believe there may be a contradiction in the logic of this commission. I agree wholeheartedly that November election dates would absolutely drive turnout. We've talked about some of the downsides to them, but they would drive turnout. And yet, this proposal here in Section 605(1)A of the 50% plus 1 proposal leaves open the possibility that a primary election would be the sole election in a cycle. Clearly, that's going to increase turnout in a negative fashion. Furthermore, I see no reason to make us only having 1 election instead of 2 contingent on a candidate getting 50% of the vote in the primary or 67% of the vote. I appreciate you mentioning ranked choice voting. I'm a big proponent of that. I am here to speak on behalf of it. But I want to just kind of reiterate that with ranked choice voting, that would guarantee we would only have to have 1 election. And we could stick it wherever on the calendar we want, depending on the different factors that we've considered here. I see no reason to leave open the possibility of having 2. Further, you talked about some of the potential complications of ranked choice voting. I worked the polls last August, and this may be just my own anecdotal evidence, but I spoke to about 100 people, and I didn't have a single person tell me that it was complicated. It is purely, from the voter's perspective, ranking your choices 1 through 4, 1 through 5, whatever it may be. I think anybody can understand that concept. From the voter's perspective, there is nothing more to it. So, while I recognize and I support the council for leaving open the possibility to just completely scrapping the two-election system as it presently exists, trying to simplify things, getting it down to one, I think this proposal is a bit of a half measure when I see no benefit to not going all the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, we'll go here next and then here third. Thank you. Good to see you again, Tiffany.
Thank you again. I'm Tiffany Moore. I live in the 6th District. Real quickly, the 50% plus one is, I think, a hard no from my point of view. That's not a high enough threshold. If we're going to use a threshold to eliminate election, it needs to be an extremely high bar. Otherwise, we're not only going to be messing with voter turnout, we'll be messing with people's interest in actually running, because it's a lot of work. 50 plus 1, if you do the math on some of the primaries this last time around, probably may not reflect what you see in the final election. Maybe it does most of the time, but I think that's to just say right out of the gate, if you can't get at least half, then don't bother. That's not going to help us drive more interest, and which would ultimately drive more voter participation. So that one, the 66% I could probably live with, particularly if you combine it with some of the other categories. Like the if there are 2 candidates, there's no primary, they go straight to the general, or if there's only one, they go straight to the general. But we should also make sure that there's always a write-in opportunity if there's only one candidate. What I do think we have to be careful of is confusing voters. I know I sometimes get confused when there are some school board races on a ballot but not on my ballot, or why is there this at large but not that at large. So if we're going to put together a system that we hope will sort of refine this process, we need to make sure that it's extremely clear to folks that if this race is not on your primary, please come back to the general, because they may not, right? So making sure that we do a better job as a city communicating to voters, not about the candidates, but about what their ballot is going to look like and how the system actually works, and actually not tinkering with this so frequently, so that folks do actually feel like they know what the heck is going on. I really like ranked choice voting, and I'm nowhere near as well versed as any of the people that have spoken at the 2 meetings I've been to. And I think the reason that it's not getting its due visibility here is because of the timeline that you guys have been given. And no one has talked about that yet tonight, but we should truly be looking at ranked choice voting, and you as a commission should have the time that it takes to hear very broad, deep information on how this works and talk to other municipalities that have used it, as opposed to, I think the previous gentleman kind of has a point, we're sort of getting there, or we're trying to do that, but we haven't quite pulled it off. So, yes, thank you.
I'm John Schaefer. I live in the Independence Plaza neighborhood, Peary Avenue, and I'd like to provide a little historic context for our elections. Going back to the first presidential election, what percentage of people do you think voted in that election? 1.7%, less than 2%. So that makes our 11% or 14% look good by comparison. And the interesting thing about that, it was spread over 26 days, from December 15th to the next January 10th. I'm not advocating that, but clearly at that time, only white, male, free, landowning people could vote. Right now I don't own any land, I rent. So, I couldn't vote in that context. I think the whole sweep of our elections reforms has been an attempt, or should be an attempt, to increase voter turnout. One of the things that we are facing now as a country is the increasing divisiveness of many campaigns Many splinter groups are becoming more extreme, and there's, open talk of civil war of some sort or another. And it's not just some of the crazies that go off shooting people that they don't like. So I think ranked choice voting is a very good solution. Let's put it to a vote. Let the people decide. Put it on the ballot and let's see what the people do think. It would save $600,000 every 4 years by eliminating a primary or a general, whichever one you look at. And it would, I think, help increase the support and involvement in elections, which would decrease the amount of extremist attitudes. I think we have to take the big picture as well as a long historic view of all of this. And so that's why I would urge you to contact, Alaska, Maine, a number of other cities that have. I don't think it's that complicated. Like the other fellow here, have been working on primary elections at the table about ranked choice voting, and I would say 80%, the people that I talk to favor it. So, but let's get it out there for everybody to vote on and follow that. Thank you.
Perfect. Saw this hand next, and then, we'll go back here after that. Hi there.
I'd like to address the significant, what's that? Oh, my name is Gilbert Moore, okay? And I'd like to address the significance of the people who are trying to promote ranked choice voting. This is not a flash in the pan. The movement for ranked choice voting is huge, and I think that most people aren't aware how huge it is. There are parties being formed in our country right now, strictly with two things: open primaries, ranked choice voting being the issue. The Ford Party is one, and they have been forming, and there's other parties that have done the same thing, and these parties have come together to form because they know their strengths in numbers. Serve America was one of the ones that combined, and Renew America. And then they've gone to California and formed alliances with the Common Sense Party. There are groups all over the country doing this right now because the people are motivated by the results. Ranked choice voting's been going on for a long time on the East Coast in city meetings, city councils, school boards, and other things like that. We just haven't had it here. And we're late, way late. And they've had years to get going. In Tennessee, for example, they started about 6 years ago. The people, they gradually got going. They had ballot initiatives and so on. And a year ago in November, they voted for it and got it. But they're not doing it because some people were threatened by it because they would have to work to represent the people rather than their party platforms. And they passed a law a year ago, February, in the House to modify the state constitution to outlaw ranked choice voting. A day later, the Senate did it. And March 8th, the governor signed it. The opposition to having to represent the people rather than the party platform is huge. Where does Kansas City come into this? You are part of a symptom of the people who are promoting this. People like me see this and understand what's going on in Alaska and other places where it has tremendously changed politics. Where 42 people ran for the House seat to be replaced, a person that passed away in the federal House, he passed away. 42 people ran for that seat. That's never happened before. And normally it'd be one from each party, maybe 3 or 4 parties. And the person that won was none of those preferred people. It was a Native American Alaskan who won. We need these changes. The people like me who are promoting this. Wow, have I already gone 2 minutes?
It goes fast. It does.
I can't believe it. Anyway, I'll sum it up. We're all motivated by what we see and what's going on. And every day we just turn on the TV, we see what's going. And we talk to people, I talk to everybody. I talk to somebody at least once a day, but I explain it way more than what you people hear here. You need to get up to speed. It's hard for you to do it. You're going to have to talk to somebody like me to understand what's happening in all the different states. The state of Florida just, that particular party, Ford Party, has ballot access in Florida right now. And there's California's working, North Carolina, South Carolina, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona. It's going. So you're in the path, and the reason why you are here in this state is because you have ballot initiatives. Kansas doesn't. They'll be the bottom of the list. But Missouri needs to get on board, and people want their country back. That's basically what they want. And and doing this makes sense for Kansas City, Missouri. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, please next. And then I see a hand back there and a hand back there as well. Yeah, thank you. And folks, just for the sake of everyone's time, if we could try to honor the 2 minutes as best as possible, that would be great. Thank you.
Why would you tell me that?
You were so good the first time. You were spot on.
I think it was. I tried to be. As you know, I really don't favor a lot of changes in election dates and things, or other than I would like to see the 12 districts. But I think ranked choice voting is something that really should be considered. And if St. Louis can do approval voting, I think we can do ranked choice voting. And the reason I think it's so important is it tends to encourage candidates not to play to the fringes of their party, but to play to the middle, and to find people who are more middle of the road. And the divisiveness I'm seeing is just horrendous to me. I mean, I thought we were coming together as a country, and I thought we'd gotten past a lot of these issues, and I was so naive because Trump, of course, brought a lot of them out. You know, he gave a blessing to some of these things that people thought but they didn't say. Well, now they say it. But right now, candidates in both parties, I think it's more evident in the Republican Party, play to that ultra-right-wing MAGA fringe. And we don't need that. We need candidates who will try to bring us together. Because really, as Americans, we have a lot more we agree on than what we disagree on. But when you have candidates pushing that divisiveness, it doesn't do good for our country. And I think ranked choice voting should be seriously considered. And I think you're going to need a little more time to do it. Because it seems to me like this commission is getting undue pressure to come up with recommendations in a much shorter period of time than similar commissions have ever been asked to do. You're dealing with important things, and they deserve your time, and they deserve enough time to fully consider them and allow more people to get involved in the process. Thank you.
Perfect. So we'll start back here and then go there. If that works. I apologize if I screw up the order. I've got limited range of eyesight here. Thank you. One more back there afterward. Okay, thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Davis. I'm from District 1. I'm an economist with the U.S. government, but I'm not here today speaking for the federal government. I'm just speaking for myself. I would like to speak in favor of ranked choice voting. I believe that it really does give a benefit for the voters. One of the issues that I have is the problem of vote splitting, and not when multiple candidates in the municipal elections, there's frequently multiple candidates, and the polling data in Kansas City is quite poor. So you not only have to choose a candidate that you like, but you also have to try and figure out who other people are going with, and potentially you're wrong. And so then you could be putting a bet in a way where it really doesn't help. And ranked choice voting prevents that mistake. So if you have 5 candidates and there's one unqualified candidate, the votes don't get spread across the qualified candidates, allowing the unqualified candidate to move forward is how I see it. So I think that there's value. I could give you partisan examples, going back to 1992 presidential election, Ross Perot, that kind of example where that troubled people on the center right, or what we're seeing maybe in Arizona with Kristen Sinema and that troubling people center left. I think whatever your affiliation, whatever your thing, ranked choice voting gets the will of the voters across. And I think that's quite important. So it allows constituents, voters' voices to be better represented. So I think that's a really important thing. I also believe as an economist, the money issue, it's better for the city finances. But most importantly, I would just say that having a system that allows constituents' voices to be more accurately represented, and by allowing a ranking across all candidates, then you are truly finding the end result as effectively as possible for the will of the voters. And I find that quite important. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're going here, and then gentleman in the back, and then that hand next. And then
Hi, I'm Lily. I live in District 4, and I want to add to the comments in support of ranked choice voting. Thanks to everyone else here who's been speaking up. I'm relatively new to Kansas City. I only lived here about a few months, but part of the reason I was drawn to move here is that the people here really speak up for what they want and push for changes that they want to see. And I really feel like I hear an interest in ranked choice voting here, and I believe that ranked choice voting would further amplify everybody's voices. I know choosing ranked choice voting would be a bold thing for us to do because we'd be leading the charge for that in Missouri and maybe even the country. And of course, every change takes some educating and adjusting, but I really think people here can handle that. I don't think that the confusion will get in the way, and that should never stop us from doing what the people want us to do. But I really see Kansas City as a leader in the country and a place that isn't afraid to make bold choices, a place that listens to the people, and I think that the people are asking for ranked choice voting. I think we're becoming more and more outspoken, and somebody before me, thank you, said exactly what I was going to say, that I just want to reiterate, if you put ranked choice voting on the ballot, then you can let the people decide. Thank you.
okay, yeah, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Michael. I'm a 5th District resident. I'm not in support of ranked choice voting. A couple reasons. One is 1 + 1 = 2. It don't equal 0.7. Got to keep it simple. I think it's nearly as bad as the Electoral College. One vote, one voice. If you are the best person, then you are the best person. There is no 3. You can't come in 2nd place 5 times and be the gold winner. It just doesn't happen. And to create that kind of system increases disenfranchisement of a single vote. And continuing to do that like we do is quite frankly irresponsible. This is a municipal election. It's not a state election or a federal election. This is a nonpartisan election. It is a vote of the people, by the people, for the people, not for a group or not for a segment of people. And to change that complicates something that is very simple. I voted for one person who I felt was the best candidate to represent me, and my neighbors did the same. We didn't vote for a coalition. We didn't vote for a party. We voted for a person. And ranked choice voting creates coalitions and parties. It again disenfranchises the individual vote. No different than the Electoral College does on the state level. And as you can see from the federal level, you can lose the popular vote but still win the election. How is that possible? Don't bring that to municipal government. or to school boards. One vote, one vote, one voice.
Thank you, Michael. That's the next hand I saw. You'll say your name.
Good afternoon. My name is Taylor Jackson. I'm a resident of the 2nd District. I'm just here to leave a quick comment in regards to RCV as a champion of fair voting systems. I'm well aware that RCV eases the election process for candidates as well as constituents, and it provides a greater scope of community ideas. However, I just have some small concerns, that being the cost. An example, the state of Minnesota voted for RCV in 2006, and then they implemented it in 2009. In that 2-year time frame, they had a task force, much like yourself, to identify where they can cut costs in election operations. So I just think that, with respect to RCV, we should consider the cost, not only with the election process, but also to educate constituents as well. Because I know this isn't something that we can just throw on voters and say, hey, this is a new voting system. We have to think about our education systems as well. How are we going to get this into schools, to teach this in civics? What are the costs for that as well? So those are just some of my concerns, and I just wanted to share that with you. Thank you so much.
Zach, yeah, go ahead. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Well, thank you guys again for scheduling this extra listening session. I understand that you guys are under a lot of time pressure, and so if there is an option to extend, I think I've heard a lot that people would appreciate that. But I would like to strongly urge this body to recommend putting ranked choice voting on the ballot. Again, if we're interested in increasing voter turnout, I think allowing the voters to be the final arbiters of the decision that gets made is, by definition, the most democratic option, right? And just in case you guys weren't aware, the information from municipalities that have previously implemented ranked choice voting, they have done studies on the effects on ranked choice voting, on turnout specifically, and I really appreciate you guys being so interested in turnout, because I would be inclined to agree our turnout, especially at the local level, is pretty sad. And all the studies that have been done have essentially concluded that ranked choice voting either is neutral or positive. I am not aware of any examples of ranked choice voting being implemented and having a depressing effect on turnout, only neutral or positive. And so if that's something that we're interested in, then definitely would be a pro. On the cost front, I think that a more holistic analysis would have to be done, right? Because we save a lot of money from eliminating runoffs and primaries, but there would be a cost with updating systems and machines and educating the population. So I think there's pros and cons on the cost front, and even if it turns out to not be a free endeavor, I think all of the good endeavors that we can undertake have some kind of cost, and I absolutely think any cost incurred would be worth it. Thank you.
All right. One more, okay.
Thank you, Harvey Nash, 6th District. Anyway, that's the way I feel about the RCV? No, to me it looks like another way to suppress votes. I'm not down with that. We got to do much better with, we got to just become creative. Because as I said when I came up here at first, we want more people to vote. So I'm thinking that if people are knowing that the system seems to be like rigged, all right, and I kind of feel in certain instances that it is, and that's because of these redlining or redistricting and whatever they do, this is where we need to start doing something different. We can't keep on doing this. RCV, I ain't never heard of that until like 4 days ago. And then I'm like, no, that seems like another one of them old tactics that, you know how these people use tactics to try and promote who they want in office. The lesser amount of people, the minority is running the majority. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of think that that's backwards. And I know damn for sure that it's not democracy. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I want to say. You got to get creative, okay? And I think it's going to start here in this state. And I don't know when they do the redlining or redrawing the district and stuff. That's got to stop. That shit should be illegal. You know what I'm saying? Because they've been doing this for years. When they said this commission got together in what, 18 something? Come on now. This is 2023.
Okay. One more. Oh, you're good. Keep it coming. That's what we're here for. No, you don't have to apologize. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Janelle, 4th District, will be in 6th. So I do want to say I am part of the older generation, so I realize the hesitancy when changing or thinking about changing voting systems, like to ranked choice voting. But I do believe that younger generations get it more, and I think when we start thinking about studying this or implementing it, I think it would draw a lot of new voters in. I think the turnout would be much higher, especially for municipal elections that aren't necessarily party driven. And it would, as a person who goes to forums, candidate forums, it would force actually candidates to speak to issues that affect our municipal laws and speak to it against each other, because even if they don't attract your number 1 vote, they want to get your number 2 vote because they might win on your number 2 vote, right? Because my vote won't be thrown away if my candidate doesn't win. It moves down to the next candidate I voted for. So it's kind of brilliant in that algorithm.
All right. Larry, did you have anything to say? Are you waiting for later? I'll wait. You'll wait? Okay. Sounds good. All right. Let's talk about initiatives and petitions.
Another scintillating topic for you all to feast on this evening. All right, jumping into it, initiative petition, referendum, and recall petition thresholds. So first, we want to name sort of the challenge that we have with this, which is revolving around some central themes that we've been talking about pretty much this entire time. Consistently low turnout results in very low thresholds, which are highly variable from election to election, since the current system calculates thresholds based upon votes in the last mayoral election. Low thresholds can lead to unnecessary conflict and an abuse of the system. Kansas City's use of votes in mayoral election is an outlier among other Missouri cities as well. Here's where we've arrived to date in terms of us approaching this topic and entertaining creative solutions to it. On May 9th, the Commission unanimously voted to include in its report a proposal to amend Section 701 and 710 of the Charter to add a floor, essentially a baseline, to the initiative and referendum petitions thresholds, while leaving the percentages unmodified. The floors, again, the established baseline, were established using an average of the actual voter turnout in the 7 most recent mayoral elections. Additionally, the Commission will include a proposal to amend Section 721, which would add, again, a floor or a baseline to recall petition thresholds and increase the percentage from 20% to 25%. This proposal has not been finalized, as the Commission is still determining the appropriate floor for in-district elected officials, as it is a fundamentally different number. In terms of our pros and cons for this, the pros first, it protects the opportunity for direct democracy by maintaining achievable thresholds. Second, it removes initiatives to pursue petitions based solely on most recent voter turnout. Third, it provides stability and consistency to citizens wishing to pursue a petition. And fourth, it safeguards representative democracy through increases to recall thresholds. Now to the cons. The static floors or baselines will not correlate to future population growth, and we know that Kansas City is in a phase of flourishment. Second, it may introduce complexity for in-district recall petitions as well. Other alternatives considered were increasing thresholds for initiative and referendum petitions, changing thresholds for signatures to be determined as a percentage of registered voters, and third, using averages of most recent elections rather than only the most recent election to establish thresholds. At this time, we'd love to have open remarks regarding this topic.
And I missed some Zoom hands.
Oh, a Zoom
For the
hand.
last topic.
Okay, I'm sorry. We're gonna.
Sorry, I couldn't see the Zoom.
No problem.
Yeah. So I believe Victoria, it looks like you've been promoted. Feel free to hop off mute and share your thoughts with us. So for those who could not hear that, Beth's points revolved around how we increase voter turnout and suggested a few different items that could help to promote that, including handicap access at polls, some concerns about short-term rentals in her neighborhood, and also things like voter registration and voter education in the high schools. So thank you for those comments, Beth. Anyone else on Zoom with a raised hand?
Yeah, one person.
Okay.
Heather, is she part of staff?
I believe so. Okay, wonderful. So with that, we will open public testimony here in person for the questions of petitions.
I think I'm still John Sharp.
Good to know. I'd be concerned if you weren't.
I think this is extremely important, and I think it's extremely important that the commission not recommend making it harder to get an initiative on the ballot, to get a referendum on the ballot, or even to recall. We've seen a lot of publicity lately, I think all of us have seen it, about how the hardcore Republicans in the Missouri General Assembly recently tried to put a constitutional amendment on the ballot to make it much harder to amend the Constitution because they didn't like some of the things that the voters approved. They didn't like expanding Medicaid. They didn't like the changes to our marijuana laws, the medical marijuana. They haven't liked. They don't want to see an amendment put on that would pass that would allow women to make their own reproductive health choices. And the media, and I think most of the public, were very critical of those efforts. And they failed. Fortunately, that did not go through the legislature. I don't think we want to replicate what they tried to do, because what they tried to do was wrong. And I think it would be wrong to make it tougher for the direct democracy to succeed here in Kansas City. It would make it, I don't want to see any change made that would make it tougher to get an initiative petition to get an ordinance on the ballot through initiative petition if the council refuses to listen to the will of the people on certain things. I don't think we want to make it tougher to have a referendum on an ordinance that the council passes that the public doesn't like. And I don't think this isn't my big reason for talking, but I think it looks bad to make it tougher to have get a recall on the ballot. In my memory, and I'm just a kid, 79, I can't remember any elected official, any members of the council or mayor actually being recalled. I mean, there's been a lot of attempts, but none of them have succeeded. The only referendum I remember was one I organized when I was on the council, and the council voted to outsource the ambulance billing for the Kansas City to a Fort Lauderdale company. Now, that was being done in-house primarily by African Americans working here at the ambulance headquarters there in Eastwood. So if you had a problem with your bill and you wanted to talk to somebody and work out a payment plan, you could talk to somebody face to face. But this ordinance would have cost us all those local jobs and contracted with this Fort Lauderdale company. I guess Fort Lauderdale needs a lot of help with their economy. And we found out when we looked at it that company also had a major patient identity theft that hadn't, in my opinion, been fully disclosed. And we got signatures. We didn't have any money. And we went to mainly churches, mainly African American churches, and got the signatures, and it was a lot. It was, I think it was like 7,000 plus. But we got enough signatures, the council repealed the ordinance. So those jobs are still here in Kansas City. But don't make it tougher for people to engage in direct democracy, because I think all of us criticize what they tried to do in Jeff City and fortunately didn't get it done. So we don't want to follow that route. We want to allow direct democracy as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, Tiffany Moore, 75th Street in the 6th District. I just have a very quick comment on this. I agree with Mr. Sharp that we should not make it more difficult. I am intrigued by the effort to make it more consistent so that a really important initiative wouldn't struggle under a high turnout, extremely competitive mayoral campaign cycle, whereas something maybe less impactful had a much smaller threshold because it was an uncontested mayoral cycle, which we know drives turnout. So I am intrigued by the effort to make the floor more consistent, but I agree that the overall effort should not be more difficult, as John said.
Gentleman in the back, yeah.
My name is Clinton Adams. I'm a resident of the 3rd District. I'd like to welcome you all to the 3rd District down here at Gregg Center. Glad you came down. I want to talk in general about my concerns about what you all are doing here. Quite frankly, I'm opposed to everything that you're doing except with the possible exception of the centralized filing. I don't see there any need to tinker with the aspects of the charter that you are tinkering with. I'm also disappointed that you all are not looking at the things that need to be looked at. Term limits, which is anti-democratic in my view, is certainly something that should be looked at, and the configuration of the council. I recently served on the redistricting commission, and during that process, we determined that 6 districts are not enough. They're too large, and it's not conducive to participation in the democratic process. If we'd had a chance to make a recommendation on that, we likely would have recommended that we go to 12 districts. So I want to speak to those people. I mean, I support the words I heard from John Sharp and others who support a change in that. With respect to the initiative petitions, it's very, very important. My community, an organization I'm active in, the Urban Summit, we got the 8-cent sales tax through initiative, through a referendum. We got the signatures, got to put it on the ballot. City Council then adopted it, went to the vote of the people, and the people adopted it. So now we have a 1/8-cent sales tax dedicated to economic development in a certain part of the east side, and there's making some changes there. Making that more difficult is anti-democratic. I looked at what you all have here, also on the referendum. A few cycles ago, we had a city council person who we thought was not being responsive to our concerns. We went out, we got the signatures, We got to recall, we got to put on the ballot, and she had to come back out, go to the people. We didn't succeed on it, but we did give the people an opportunity to be heard on it. If you already just 10,000 signatures, who wouldn't be able to do that? I think that's anti-democratic. You shouldn't do it. So I would encourage you all not to tinker. These tinkering things you do here, I mean, it seems like you all are just trying to find some busy work or something, or just doing something because you've been appointed. The things you're suggesting here are not really, in my view, necessary at this point in time. And I wish you would go back to the council and ask them to give you an extension of time so you can look at term limits, so you can look at the configuration of the council and things that are really going to impact the way we govern the city. Thank you.
Yep. We'll go to you. One quick comment. I believe the red lines currently state that there is a threshold of 10,000 that would be required for in-district recall petitions, which is what you just spoke to. Correct. Yep. So just wanted to clarify that this was actually an old, that was a placeholder 10,000. So the group has not at this time determined what the in-district threshold would be. We all agreed that 10,000 was too high and too onerous a task for in-district recalls. So please know that I think that speaks to some of each of the last three comments, but that's something that we're trying to prioritize.
I'd like to add and just on Ms. Moore is that it would be difficult to make it consistent. I like the system that you have. It goes in cycles. And generally, when you have a mayoral election for an open seat, you're going to have greater turnout. So that the next 4 years, it's going to be more difficult. But then we have a situation like this, it's going to be a lower turnout. So then it makes it a lot easier for people to get involved to vote for you. So getting consistency is going to be difficult without making it more onerous all the time.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, please.
Hello, my name is Cheryl Barnes. I live in the 5th District. I'd like to second all of John Sharp's points about not making the initiative petition process any more difficult. It is very difficult to get volunteers to stand out in the hot sun outside a grocery store, accost your friends and neighbors and total strangers and ask them to sign a petition while you're trying to explain how important this is, and you would like for them to stop worrying about their melting ice cream and sign their name and move on. Especially considering what's going on in Jeff City, I think it is crazy to make it more difficult for us in Kansas City, to make it more difficult to affect change. Excuse me. In section 21, it says filing a recall petition. Are we at that point now to talk about that? I'm wondering why you cut out not filing the recall petitions with the election authorities, and it just goes to the city the city clerk, and not with the election authorities. Why they've been cut out of the process?
I can speak to that. Thank you.
Yeah, so that is a derivative change that's specific to the central filing location. So as we talked about at the very beginning of the meeting, by consolidating all the different places where any type of petition, so to run for office, you're filing the nominating petition, all of that would be consolidated to the city clerk's office rather than the city clerk and Clay County, Platte County, etc.
I'd like to add, though, we did confirm that the signatures that would be gotten on the petition would be then sent out to those local offices for confirmation. So it's being submitted in one location, but it will also be confirmed, or the signatures will be validated in the applicable offices.
That was my question, because the election commission has the voters. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, great question. Thank you. Great clarification there. So, yes.
Janelle, 4th District. I wanted to reiterate what everybody has said about the initiative petition process. I think right now Missouri voters are looking at perhaps next year, right, up against a wall again with the state legislature trying to pass a referendum on the initiative petition process. It's a way for democracy to work in Missouri. It's one of the few things we have going for us right now. So I would discourage any just even appearance of inhibiting the petition process, because it looks like a disenfranchising of voters even if that's not the intent, I think it would look like that's the intent, so.
Okay.
I'm Gilbert Moore. In regards to the possibility of needing even to have ballot initiatives, is probably sometimes people in position think, well, we cover everything that the people want, but I think that's not quite true, you know, and we see that at state level and so on. So you do need it. It's needed. And an example of that would be, look at our country. We have two parties, and we have a whole bunch of people who can't get medicine for sugar diabetes, insulin and so on. Yet, if you have an issue that's not being addressed by the people in the office, you're basically out. And so we need ballot initiatives, very healthy thing to keep things going, because people in office do have priorities and things that are going on, or they don't understand situations, or they're not in that position. Take people who don't understand the need for insurance for everybody. Maybe they work at a good job, they have good insurance, they don't understand why other people don't. So you need to have ballot initiatives that are healthy. But the other thing that makes a difference is people on a national level and other levels, we got to understand that most of the voters are independent. The largest group of people in our country is about 46% independent voters. 27% are Republican, 27% are Democrat. So if you have any situation where it leans towards a party situation, you're leaving out a vast majority of people and their opinions. And the ballot initiative is a safeguard on a local level and the higher levels to combat or take care of issues where the people in office are not addressing the issues of the people.
Michael, 5th District. The irony that we want to keep initiative petition simple for the clarity of the people, but we want ranked choice voting. The irony of that. So I'm going to ask for ranked choice voting on initiative petitions so that we can have maybe, yes, no, likely, maybe unlikely, all on initiative. And if most of us suggested maybe unlikely, then it shouldn't pass. The irony of that. The irony of saying you want a democratic process if your voice isn't heard through the initiative petition, but not when I say one voice, one vote. That we're going to rank those folks. The problem with all of that is, if you want democracy, democracy should be simple. It is a simple process. If you get enough people to come and say, this is a problem, then we should look at it. Whatever that threshold is kind of up to you. The districts are 85,000 people in a district. And if you say that 4,000 people, or whatever that number is, out of 85,000 is enough to create something, you're saying 5% of the people can change what 95% of the people said. I don't know what the right number is. It's not good being you. So whatever you decide is fine, but at least there's a process, there's a threshold, and all the processes should be consistent, and they should be simple. We shouldn't have a whole lot of if-then statements. 1 + 1 always equals 2. There is no if-then 1.7. Keep it simple. This is a municipal election. It is not a national election. We already know it is a nonpartisan election. There is no Democrat, Republic, Independent. It is my neighbor. It is literally my neighbor. So just keep it simple, whatever that is, and you shouldn't disenfranchise voters in no case whatsoever.
Okay, are there any raised hands on Zoom? If not, we'll start prioritizing these speaker cards who have not yet had a chance to speak. Okay. Okay. Full slate on Zoom. She calling you yet?
Hey, city got to pay for my minutes. Come on, city.
Okay, you're on, Ruby. Oh, maybe not on yet.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, because for some reason I'm still not able to get my thing to work. Even when you have me on the unmute. But anyway, what I would like to say, I'm with Michael on this. I believe, and I did look up the ranked choice voting, and what I can see from that is really not a good thing. And as it said, that if that were the case, then all the other states would be following. And it seems that it's really for one party, whichever party it may be, to stay in power. So I don't want to see it on the voting. And the other thing is, I believe that if you put it out there on the ballot, that the voters are going to be very confused about it, because this, how does the saying go? If it's not broke, don't fix it. So that's where I'm at with that. By the way, I'm in the 5th district, and voting is bad enough that it doesn't seem to be enough voter education going on as it is, and then you want to come in here and put a ranked choice voting system in there. I am not for that. I don't want to see it on the ballot. And it, to me, is another way, as Harvey or someone was saying, it's another way to disenfranchise voters, because if they don't understand it, then they're not going to vote. So I wish you guys would just table that. And then I also agree with the young lady who was talking about the school districts and going in and registering the seniors to vote. And so we still have a lot of work to do before we even get to ranked choice. And I'm hoping that you don't, because I like the system as it is. And so if you have 3 or 4 people running in a district, let them all get up there on the platform. And they do, from the last platform that I was in, they were speaking to the issues. So I don't understand the young lady that said that they were not speaking to her issue. I don't know what her issue was, but the platform that I was at, they spoke to all the issues that the audience was asking. So that's where I'm at on that. And I probably had something else to say, and I forgot as long as it took you to get me off of
Thank you, Ruby. We appreciate you. Bye-bye. She's still left. We'll see you. No, I didn't. Oh, man. That's funny. Okay, I see Beth Jones. Beth, good to see you again. Go ahead. Great. Thank you, Taki. So Taki shared his support of even year election calendar, saying that would drive voter turnout, and then also expressed concerns about the thresholds for recall petitions. So I do see a hand. We're going to go ahead and prioritize quickly, though, the speaker cards here for those who have not had a chance to speak yet. I know there are several folks who have been waiting patiently, so we want to make sure that everyone gets a turn.
Okay, my name is Lucas Rodriguez, 3rd District. I want to start by thanking all of you for the work you've done on this commission. I won't echo what has already been said many times during this process, but what I would like to talk about is the opportunity for how this process can be in the future. In our current charter, the process outlined lacks substance. There are a few sentences that mention it has to be at least every 10 years, commissioners selected by the mayor. There's not much more than that. When compared to other cities, these are incredibly low standards. While some cities spend 5 weeks just determining who even sits on their commissions, that was the amount of time that you all were given to finish this review. I understand that that's the timeline that all of you agreed to. And I would like to open up our imaginations to what this process can look like next time. We have 2 public meetings in every city council district. We have translators for non-English speakers to participate in this process. Childcare is provided. And there's a mandated minimum time for the commission to do their work, so that there is adequate time not only to hear community input, but also enough time to research proposals put forth, such as like ranked choice voting. So there's a middle ground to what the public has been asking for, which is a timeline extension, and your expectations as a commission, which was a short timeline. And I think you have an opportunity to set that standard for the next Charter Commission. And to set that standard to be one of the best charter commissions that a city has in this country. Cities all across America have review processes that are 10 times more thorough than ours, so let's catch up and codify a better process into this charter. Thank you.
Appreciate those comments. Okay, Emerson Hayes. You can't just change your name on us.
Sorry. Jazz is actually my middle name, and that's what I go by. So, Emerson.
You can't be confusing us like that.
Sorry.
I wondered if your brother was here or something.
No. Not to beat a dead horse. Timeline's way too short. You guys don't have enough time to, review the charter. You're reviewing 5 proposals in 5 weeks. You've all heard it before. I do want to say that when I think about what could possibly be in the charter, a major thing that I think about that the city's facing as a problem is public engagement. Right? We have a public engagement problem in the city council, in the city government, including boards and commissions. And if we can somehow codify a public engagement process in city council committee meetings, in boards and commissions, things like that, I think that would be a great improvement. And look, Jack, I know what you're going to say. Oh, this can be done with an ordinance. And I hear that. I've heard it about a number of different things. And on those things and on this, I think just because something can be done by ordinance doesn't mean it shouldn't be done by the charter, right? The charter is our city's constitution, and much like our constitution, no one said, when they were doing, the amendments to the Constitution, no one said, oh, Equal Rights Amendment, we shouldn't pass that because, this U.S. government can pass a statute to handle that. No, we want to preempt the government from undermining these fundamental rules, okay? One of which I think should be a public engagement process. Look, I've worked a $15 an hour job that I took off work for to go to a committee meeting on the middle of the day on a Wednesday. And that's not right, okay? It should be easier to get involved in our local government, and it shouldn't have to result in taking, work off to go because city council decides that they want to meet in the middle of the day on a Wednesday. So whatever it looks like, whether it be, a certain conditions triggering committee meetings happening outside of workday, whether it's, I have no idea. I'm sure the commission could be creative. I'm sure other cities have codified this in their charters. I have no idea. Don't have time to look into it because this has only been 5 weeks. But my general comment is that we should codify a public engagement process into the charter. Thank you.
All right. Ricardo Flores. Hi, Ricardo.
Hello. My name is Ricardo Flores. I live in the 4th District. First of all, thank you all for doing what you're doing. This is no easy task. So I'm going to read this thing. So basically, my thing with this commission is the aspect of public engagement, like the people that, were before me mentioned. In the website for the commission announcement, Mayor Lucas talks about leading efforts towards a stronger and more representative city, but how can we truly make that happen if we're not meeting people where they're at? I work for the Klice Neighborhood Association. That neighborhood, which is in the historic Northeast, around the corner, has 50% or more that are Spanish speakers. So the city doesn't do a really good job translating material, providing interpretation services at all of their events. I would love for the commission to take that into consideration. Not even some of the community members in this area, we do a big effort trying to, let people know what's going on. But it's hard to do that if we don't have the materials, if we don't have the information translated. I often tend to do the labor that the city should be doing by doing that. interpreting, translating. I've attended, different events in which they would say, we have interpretation on site, we requested, we show up, there's none of that, I end up doing it, so I would love for the commission to look into that, facilitate that. I think that the commission can set us up for success for the future. Maybe even if it's not done right now, maybe you can put something for the next 10 years. So the next charter, revision or whatever can provide that. We really need it. There's a lot of people here that really want to know what's going on with the city, but it's not truly accessible, and I think you guys can help us out with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ricardo. Okay, Joseph Thomas. First of all, I'd like to go on the record and say I love those pants.
I appreciate it. Thank you. On the record.
Work pants. So I'll make it as quick as possible. Thank you for everything that you guys are doing. I'm still trying to process the whole RCV process itself, to be honest with you. I don't think, as of right now as I'm speaking, I don't think that right now would be the right time to place a RCV process in place. In regards to what the gentleman was saying back here, he said Hayes, I believe his name was Hayes. We can't echo that message enough. Public engagement is extremely important. So to try to bring in a new process when we already have a huge disconnection of public engagement, public education, of how processes take place, how processes are proposed, I think that would be extremely, I don't think that's going to be productive to our city as we're growing and at the rate of how the city is growing. Young lady over here also mentioned about the whole 50% process of voting. I'm not really comfortable with that as well. I'm just really not comfortable with that because I'm trying to check my time because I'm trying to make this quick. We got a lot of issues within our communities. I'm a resident of 3rd District. What I would like to see, within our communities, a lot more continuity. What I would like to see is a lot more transition of power. What I would like to see is a lot more togetherness working when it comes, especially when it comes to the civic engagement process. Saying that if you cannot earn 50% of the vote, then you don't matter, I think is a message that can be possibly echoed to those that may want to make a matter or make a difference within their city. So I'm really still trying to process that as well. But if I can just leave with saying anything, I think the public engagement piece is extremely important. It should be one of the most top priority things we're focused on right now, making time available for those, because a lot of us in areas like 3rd District, we do not have the opportunity or fortune enough to take off work, to be involved, not because we don't want to, but just because we probably can't afford to. So coming up with those type of solutions, I think would be helpful. I don't want to hit that buzzer on me, but thank you.
Thank you. It was a tight 2 minutes. I appreciate that. Okay. Larry, you still holding, or? You're the last one. Last card standing. Okay. Well, Larry, why don't you go ahead and then we'll do final comments after that. So. Okay, great.
I'm a roll follower, and you didn't say general comments yet, but I will make this brief because I think you've heard some very consistent messages. Again, Tiffany Moore, 6th District. I live on 75th Street. My primary purpose for coming to the second meeting tonight was to recommend that you ask for a timeline extension. What you are tasked with doing, and thank you for taking that task, is consequential. It's impactful, and it is important to the core of our democracy. This is about voting, and that's at the core of what we are here for. You're asking us to talk about solutions when we haven't defined the problem. Low voter turnout is not the problem, that's the symptom. We don't know why they're not turning out, so we're tinkering, and I love that, Mr. Adams, I'm stealing that from you. We're tinkering. If we don't know whether the last date change on elections improved our turnout, we should not be considering another date change to try and improve voter turnout. If we don't know whether ranked choice voting would be compliant with state statutes, then it shouldn't be off the table until you know that it doesn't comply with state statutes, right? We can't make decisions without the data. What if the low turnout symptom is a function of the short terms, that people are frustrated that they feel like they're constantly voting for people that they don't know, or they're frustrated that they don't know what district they're in again, or they don't know where to vote because we keep changing where the voter locations are, or that we don't have sign language actually interpreted at any of these kind of meetings, that the dates are constantly changing, or they don't know how to find information on what's on their ballot. If those are the reasons that they don't turn out, then nothing that you're considering in this charter change is going to help in any way. We need more consideration of ranked choice voting to know whether it's going to work. And I'll say very quickly before the end, I'm actually dismayed that that changing the district format wasn't on this. I actually assumed that it would be, because it was recommended by the Redistricting Commission and it was recommended at the last Charter Commission. So, thank you.
Okay, so hold on. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to make a comment because I think that's an important point, and we do want to address that. And frankly, it should have been in our briefing at the start of this. So you bring up a great point. So Stephanie Smith, the chair of the Redistricting Commission, came and spoke with us, and that was one of the big questions that we have had in this process. Right? There's this clear, large looming question of, you know, how many in-district versus at-large candidates, and additionally the number of districts that we currently have. So specific in that commission was the recommendation that the mayor appoint a dedicated commission for the purpose of analyzing, studying, and making recommendations about the number of and the composition of districts within this charter, right? And so that's one of the things that we also agree with. We think that that's an important matter. What we heard from Stephanie was that it was important that that be a most likely 12 to 18 month to 24 month process with a group of dedicated subject matter experts. I think another concern that we've heard from several folks in the process is that there were a lot of data issues with the most recent census data as a result of that happening during COVID, and also as a result of the administration that was in the White House at the time. And so with that, there have been many recommendations that study be kicked off when there's interim census data available, so that we can have a more representative redistricting. And so that's one of the things that we do plan to include within the report, is to reiterate and to emphasize and put an exclamation mark behind the Redistricting Commission's comments there. So thank you for that. Jazz, I see your hand. We're going to go in order here. So the gal in the red vest, you have been waiting patiently. I apologize that I don't remember your name at this time. Cheryl, thank you.
Cheryl Barnes, I live in the 5th District. I was thinking about your response and taking all of our initiative petitions to the city clerk. What if our initiative petition said something like, do away with the city clerk's office? What is the chain of, what keeps those initiative petitions secure, so that the number we give you 5,000, and how do we know that the city clerk is going to deliver 5,000 if it is to do away with his or her job? You know, there was always when I help out with the League of Women Voters, and when we did a study on early voters, the county clerks were concerned about, I think it's called chain of custody or something like that, but making sure that the information stays secure. So I find that, you know, to be a little bit concerning. There are 3 election boards. There are only 33 voters in Cass County, so I wouldn't count Cass County, but nonetheless, we could. But that would mean the Platte County Election Board, the Clay County Election Board, and the Jackson County Election Board. I don't find that onerous. We all know who our election boards are, those people who are voting, and probably who are collecting the initiative petitions. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. And then about voter turnout, I wonder what the city is doing to promote voter turnout. You know, with the billing that goes out with the water department and other things, it just seems like to me they have a great communications department. It seems like to me they could get on the ball. It could be a mandate. It may or may not be part of the charter, but it seems like it would be easy enough for the city to say, this is a big deal. You know, put bus wraps and all of that, not leave it up to civic organizations to try to register voters and go to schools and register graduating seniors. It just seems like there's more that the city could do to make voting a holiday, actually, and get enthusiastic about voting and hoopla, you know, the Cobra marching band, and we're going to all go vote, or whatever, you know, whatever it takes. You know, what is it, on the Sunday voters, they all got on the bus and, you know, whatever, I don't know what it takes. But at any rate, I think there are lots of things that could be done to make voting more of a holiday plus civics, and I just think that that's not being done.
Okay, just one housekeeping moment, then we'll go to you here. Just to be respectful of city staff, I know that we have city staff here that is working overtime, and we're just going to do these final three. So Jazz, and then we'll go gentleman here, and we'll finish with Larry here. Thank you. You've had 4 turns already. Thank you.
I'm not going to take a full 2 minutes. I just wanted to point out regarding the discussion about the district number and stuff like that. The Redistricting Commission recommended that a commission be formed to look at district numbers. Charter Review Commission is going to recommend that a commission be formed to look at district numbers. How many commissions need to recommend that a commission is formed before the commission is formed? It's not that hard. So, you know, we have the legal body here to do the thing, could do the thing. It doesn't seem like you guys want to, but I do want to point out the absurdity and ridiculousness of continuing to talk about this without actually doing something about it. That's all.
I'm Gilbert Moore. I got 2 comments. Just a few meetings I've come to, and I've heard the discussion about how difficult it is to do ranked choice voting. I want to point out a little history. Nevada started out with 1 city with ranked choice voting. Then it went to 3, then to 6, then to 9, and it got up to 23. It wasn't difficult. As a matter of fact, it was, people liked it and they kept expanding on it. And the same thing could happen here. The other comment has to do, well, we shouldn't do it if the state doesn't want to do it. It doesn't line up with state laws. If we had that kind of attitude, we wouldn't have legalized pot because the federal government doesn't want it. By having a vote on it, you are telling state representatives, you have a way of messaging to them what the people want. So by having a vote, you are relaying to the state officials what they want for the state. Otherwise, they won't have the information. That's basically it.
I'll be quick. Okay. Normally I say negative things. I want to say some good things here. I like that you kept this local election in the odd-numbered year. I think that allows people to focus and doesn't have the confusion. You should do that. And the other thing, I like the central filing. I like the random placement of names on the ballot. Those are good things, guys. So I'm not, totally opposed to everything in the world and all that sort of stuff. So let's talk here about just a couple of things. For all of you who are opponents to ranked choice voting, I invite you to go to betterballotkc.org. I also invite you to go to fairvote.org and get the real information about it before you decide you're going to oppose it. In the Declaration of Independence, one of the key phrases is the consent of the governed. Well, how do you have the consent of the governed if you let people get nominations and win elections with less than 50% plus 1 or better? Okay? And ranked choice voting fixes it so that nobody gets nominations and nobody wins elections unless they get 50% plus 1 or better. Okay? So we need this stuff. I did a little research today. One thing we haven't brought out yet. Went through the number of candidates in various election years. 2000 for mayor, in 2007 you had 12 candidates. In 2011 you had 7 candidates. 2015 you had 3 candidates. 2019 you had 11 candidates. And now of course you had 3 candidates this time. So what does that say to us? It says that in 2027, you're going to have at least 10 candidates for mayor, because Lucas is term limited, he can't run again. You're going to have at least 10 bodies in there. If you're voting for that as a Kansas City voter and you're using the ballot you use now, you only get one choice, okay? You don't get to express your full thing. Well, here's my first choice, here's my second, here's my third. You're limited to the one choice. And do you do not think that's a detriment to voter turnout? And what's more, you split that with all that the lower turnout. That's also an encouragement for recalls because people are dissatisfied. In 2019, the two people who went to the runoff election did so with about 40% of the vote. That means 60% were opposed to them. Okay? And that's part of where that dissatisfaction comes. You go ranked choice voting, you won't have that. RCV is the path to political peace for all of us. And I'll let it go at that. And you'll see me tomorrow night, and we'll talk some more, okay? Rachel will be there. Thank you all very much. Good session tonight.
So we just want to say thank you to everybody. We recognize that folks probably have more to say, and we apologize that we can't get to everything. We just want to be respectful to the city staff who's here and serving us this evening. So thank you, everyone. For those who would like to say something more, we will have an opportunity for public comment tomorrow. We'll be meeting at City Hall at 5 p.m. You can join us virtually or in person. Any closing comments from the commissioners? Take that as no. Thank you all. We appreciate your time.